الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. My dear respected brothers and elders, last week I was speaking about how Islam plays a role in business, and if a person is God conscious in business, how that business succeeds, and how this person in the eyes of the Prophet of Allah will be associated with prophets, siddiqeen and shuhada. Imam Ghazali rahimahumullah, he has mentioned the foundation of business. It is وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. This is the foundation of business, and for the last 2 to 3 months I have been speaking about this attribute and quality of Islam, which is called taqwa. So you see, taqwa even prevails in business as well. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. That if a person is God-fearing, he fears Allah Rabbul Izzat, this person, inshallah, his business, he will be a successful businessman. He will reap the fruits of barakah and blessings. Listen to my words very carefully. I am not saying he will reap the fruits of abundance. He will reap the fruits of barakah and blessing. Whatever he earns, that earning for him will be beneficial. That earning will be spent for appropriate and through the proper channel. It will be spent appropriately, and it will be spent on the correct things and through the proper channel. If we have to wrap up, summarize in a nutshell the etiquettes and the adab and the principles of Islamic business, there are 8 to 10 in total. Whatever a person, whatever merchandise a person is selling, whatever nature of business a person is doing, his business should revolve around these 8 or 10 principles. If he is missing one of these, if he is not acting upon one of these principles, he will be deprived of barakah and blessing. We see in the time of the Prophet of Allah, the Sahaba, and then the Tabi'een, when it came to implementing and applying these principles, they were very stern. They were very scrupulous and stringent. That's why they reap the fruits of their business in this dunya. That's why when they used to walk in the markets, or when they used to walk down the street, people used to call them Amin or Sadiq. There is a question which I will pose today. We have heard this many a times, and many is not the correct word here. A million of times we have heard this. The Prophet was Sadiqul Amin. How was the Prophet Sadiqul Amin? If a person remains at home, does nothing, just does the ibadat of Allah Rabbul Izzat and fast, how can he be known by the people as As-Sadiq and Amin? He has to do something revolving around Sidq and Imana, which will give him this title. If a person is generous, the reason is he spends in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat. That's why he's called generous. And on the same token, if a person is a miser, the reason is he doesn't spend. That's why he's called a miser. Now if a person is called Sadiq, there must be some reason why he's been given this title. And if he's Amin, there must be some reason why he's been given this title. And what is the reason? That's why there is no doctrine in Sharia of mutual reliance. None. There is no concept of unemployment in Islam. No concept. No concept of unemployment in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said, trustworthiness attracts righteousness. And when a person becomes righteous, he becomes entitled to Jannah. Now, why was the Prophet called As-Sadiq and Al-Amin? What is the reason? Is it because he was well known because of his ibadah? Was it because he was kind and generous to the people? Was it he was helpful for the people, or assisted the people when they were in problems? Why was the Prophet called As-Sadiq and Al-Amin? We say this many a time, but we don't ponder. If the Prophet had to be given any title before Nabuwah, it should have been he's kind, he's generous, his akhlaq are great. But no one gave him these titles. He only had 2 titles before becoming a Prophet of Allah. And he was known by these titles. Wherever he walked the streets in Makkah, he was known by these 2 titles. As-Sadiq and Al-Amin. You know why? He was a businessman. He was a businessman. And he was fair in his business. Those principles and laws and teachings with the Prophet ﷺ promoted after becoming a prophet, he was practicing before he was a prophet. That's why he was a Sadiq and Amin. In his dealings, he was kara, he was upright in his dealings. And how upright? Abdullah ibn Abi Hamza radiyallahu anhu, he says, this is how upright the Prophet was in his dealings. Abdullah ibn Abi Hamza radiyallahu anhu, he says once, before the Prophet was a prophet, we had a dealing. I made a transaction with the Prophet of Allah. The Prophet sold me something. Whatever money I had, I gave to the Prophet. But there was some shortfall. So I said to the Prophet of Allah, can you please wait here, inshallah, I'll be back. He left. When he left, he forgot that he said to the Prophet, I will be back. Now the Prophet remained there for 3 days, he did not move. Why? Because this person said, wait here, I'll be back. The Prophet did not move for 3 days. When he remembered, he said, oh, what a mistake. I said to Muhammad, he was not a prophet at that time, that wait here, I'll be back. Maybe he is still there. So he rushed back after a day or 2, but in reality it was 3 days. He rushed back after 3 days. And he saw the Prophet seated there. The Prophet was sitting there. When he came back, when he returned, when the Prophet ﷺ saw him, he said, look, because of you, you have troubled me a lot. I haven't moved from this place for 3 days. I haven't moved for 3 days. And why? Is it because the Prophet ﷺ wanted to demonstrate him salah? Is it because the Prophet wanted to teach him Quran? Is it because the Prophet wanted to teach him zikr? No. This whole happened because of a business deal. That's why the Prophet was called As-Sadiq and Al-Amin. He traveled Sham and Yemen many times before becoming a prophet. This is how he established himself as an upright and just person. That his business was free from fraud and deceit. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, when you make a deal, you should say, there is no cheating in this deal. It is incumbent on the seller to say, there is no cheating in this deal. This is one of the principles. Now you're going to be your iman has to be very low. If you are saying this and inside you know you are wrong. That's why the Prophet says, announce. When you make a deal, say, there is no cheating in this deal. Dawood alayhi salatu wassalam understood this. The barakat and the blessing of earning with your own hands and not sitting off Centrelink or abusing the system. He understood this. Even though there was a Baytul Mal at that time, and Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wassalam's tanha, wages and salary was from the Baytul Mal. He was a king of the time. He used to disguise himself when he used to leave home. Disguise himself. wear tarred clothes, rugged clothes, old clothes. And then he used to walk the streets and the bazaars and the public places, and he used to ask people, what do you think about Dawood? So he used to go out and ask people about himself, but he used to disguise himself. What do you think about Dawood? And he used to get the replies, he's a good person, he's this, he's that, he does a good job. One time, Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam came in a form of a human being. And Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam asked him the same question. What do you think of Dawood? He said, Dawood's a top bloke. But there's one thing. Dawood alayhi salam, what's that one thing? He said, there is no one more close in the eyes of Allah Rabbul Izzat than that person who works for his salary, who makes an effort with his own hands for his livelihood. There's no one more beloved to Allah than that person who makes a living with his own hands, who does not sit off the Baytul Mal, who does not abuse the Centrelink. At that time there was no Centrelink, it was Baytul Mal. So Jibreel said, he's a top fellow, but there's one thing, his wages come from the Baytul Mal. Allah. He said his wages come from the Baytul Mal. And there's no one more close in the eyes of Allah than that person who makes a livelihood with his own hands. As soon as Dawood alayhi salatu wassalam heard this, he started to profusely cry. He ran back home, entered the mihrab, and he made a dua to Allah. Oh Allah, teach me something so I can do with these own two hands. Teach me something so I can become rich from the Baytul Mal. Then Allah Rabbul Izzat made iron soft for him. Alanna lahul hadid. Allah says in the glorious Quran, Allah made iron soft for him. Like we play with dough, he used to play with iron. This is the understanding of Dawood alayhi salam. In his free time, he used to make armor, zir'as, armor. And then after retiring or coming back from work, he used to go to the market and then sell the armor for his own livelihood and for the sustenance of his own family. He stopped taking wages and salary from the Baytul Mal. Imam Ghazali rahimahumullah says, there are some sins which Allah cannot wash or expiate from a person's account until and unless he does not work with his own hands for a livelihood. There are some sins that will always remain in his account. Allah wants to see this person go through hardship to expiate those sins. Once the Prophet was amongst the Sahaba. Today we have narrowed Islam. We think a person who is praying is fi sabilillah. Nothing else is fi sabilillah. Going in the path of Allah is fi sabilillah. Nothing else is fi sabilillah. Studying in a madrasa, seeking knowledge is fi sabilillah. Nothing else is fi sabilillah. As far as fi sabilillah is concerned, being in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat, it is so broad, it is broader than the horizon. Broader than the horizon. Everyone is in fi sabilillah if the intention is correct. Everybody. On the day of judgment, everyone will be resurrected if they had that intention. When they were in that walk of life and they had this intention, they will be resurrected fi sabilillah. Allahu Akbar. Allah accommodates everybody. The weak, the strong, the extra weak. Allah accommodates everybody. So on the day of judgment, no one's a loser. So on the day of judgment, no one's a loser. Everyone's a winner. He spent all his life in the path of Allah, he's a winner. This person didn't spend his life, but he served his parents. He was in fi sabilillah as well. Once the Prophet was amongst the Sahaba and Abu Bakr Siddiq was there as well, and a young boy passed, a robust young boy, handsome, young, beautiful boy. He had a good structure. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he said, how good would it be if this person fought in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat? So this was the opinion of Abu Bakr Siddiq. How good would it be if this person fought in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat? And in the eyes of Allah Rabbul Izzat, the greatest of virtues, the greatest form of virtue, it is fighting in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat. That's why their rank comes after the Anbiya. As far as Amal is concerned, as far as knowledge is concerned, there are two classes. The class of Anbiya and Siddiqeen. And as far as the classes of Amal, action are concerned, there are two classes. Shuhada and Salihin. Shuhada is above Salihin. So in the eyes of Allah Rabbul Izzat, as far as amal is concerned, not ideology and knowledge, there is no one greater than the shuhada. So Abu Bakr Siddiq, he was valid in saying this, he was right in saying this, he was correct in saying this. If this young person was in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat, how good would it be? How did the Prophet reply? This is why the Prophet was very wise and smart. Very wise. He could have said, yes, come here young boy, go in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat. But everybody has their own, everyone is in their own theatre, in their own arena. Everyone is in their own world. I don't know what you are suffering, I don't know what you are experiencing, I don't know what you are going through, and on the same token you don't know what I am going through, what I am suffering, what I am thinking. So we could accommodate, give the person the benefit of the doubt. And this is what the Prophet used to do, give the benefit of the doubt to the people, benefit of the doubt. The Prophet said, if this person, young person of Abu Bakr Siddiq, this young person who you are looking at, if this young person is serving and helping his parents, he is in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat. Allahu Akbar. And if this young person, and if not this, if this young person is making a livelihood for himself, for his children, he still is in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat. And if this person has this intention that he's making a livelihood, so he does not become a beggar or asks from people, he is still in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat. The Prophet left no room for a person not to be in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat. All we have to do is make the correct intention. Why are we making a livelihood? But the Prophet ﷺ completed this hadith by saying, if this person is doing all this for name and show, then he is in the hands of the shaitan. He's on the path of the shaitan. So whatever we are earning, whatever we are making, if it is for the sustenance of myself, the sustenance of my family, this person is in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzat, his intention is 100% correct. On the day of judgment he will be resurrected with the Anbiya, the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada and the Sulaha. Wathla ibn Aska radiyallahu an, a famous Sahabi of the Prophet of Allah. It is said, once after Asr, and usually Asr is the time, not nowadays, even nowadays in the West, especially in the Muslim countries in the old days, not now. After Asr, the business used to increase after Salatul Asr. The reason being is people are coming back from work, buying groceries, and the shopkeepers, they are wrapping up their business for the day. So it used to increase business. It used to increase the influx of customers. So now at the time of Asr, what happens is, Wasla ibn Aska radiyallahu an, he performs his Asr Salah. Allah Rabbul Izzat in the glorious Quran says, Hafizu ala salatil wusta, that be diligent and careful regarding Salat al-Wusta. And it is the commentary of the majority of the Mufassirun that what does Allah mean by Salat al-Wusta? He means Salatul Asr. The reason being is this is a time where the time for Salat is very narrow. The gap is very narrow. You've got 1 hour, 1 hour 15 minutes. So if you get caught up in business, there is a possibility you can miss your Salatul Asr. That's why Allah Rabbul Izzat says, take care of your Asr Salah. You should instantly read it. As soon as the time of Asr starts, perform your Salah. There's a possibility you can miss your Asr Salah. So now what happens is he performs his Asr Salah and he comes back. He used to sell and buy camels. Now really, to understand where I'm coming from, we have to understand and read the history of the Arabs and their condition and their situation before the advent of prophethood. Then you will understand where I'm coming from. Such a big transformation, such a big change, it's amazing. And it is all the barakat and the blessing of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Today we are seated here, we are praying in whatever fashion, whatever level of khushu, khuzu we have in our salah, it is the barakah and blessing of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. 1400 years have passed. What haven't people tried to do as far as Islam is concerned? People have tried to bury Islam for the last 1400 years, but Islam has always prevailed and it will prevail until Qiyamah. Because a sign of Qiyamah it is that Islam will be buried. So if someone is trying to bury Islam, in reality he is calling Qiyamah before time. If anyone is trying to bury the Muslims, in reality that person is trying to call Qiyamah before time. Qiyamah will come at his time. No one can bury the Muslims. No one can remove Islam from the face of the earth. If you read Islamic history, the plots and the plannings against Islam from day one, but at the end of the day, Islam always succeeded and prevailed. It is because of people like Wathla bin Aska radiyallahu ta'ala why Islam prevailed. It is said he used to buy and sell camels. One day what happened is that a customer came and he sold him a camel for 300 dirham. Now this is a person who had no regard for humanity. These are Arabs. Before the time of the Prophet, no regard for humanity. They used to bury their own daughters. There are names of certain and specific battles which carried on for centuries. I'm not talking about years, centuries. 100 years, 200 years, one thing, a battle is carried on, a feud is carried on, a disagreement has carried on for 200 years. And what is the disagreement? Maybe he says something to him, that's it. This creates a disagreement. It's in the heart for 100, 200 years. There's names for this in the books of history. Wasla bin Askar sells the camel 300 dirham. The person leaves. When the person leaves, Wasla bin Askar, he realizes he has made a big blunder and a big mistake. And he has forsaken the first principle of business. What is that? Deceit and fraud. That he has deceived a fellow Muslim brother. The first thought that comes in his mind. First principle of business. We have to refrain from deceit and fraud. But he has engaged in deceit and fraud according to his understanding. So now what happens is when he realizes, he starts to tremble. And then he goes out in search of this person. And you've got to remember now, the time is very short. Now the markets are closing. I mentioned at the start, it's the time of Asr. He goes out in search of this person. Eventually when he catches up with this person, he forgets his own business. I've got to sell some more camels to make a livelihood. He says, I've got to solve this problem first. He goes out in search of this person. When he finds this person, he says, look, I have a question. What was the nature of your business? Why did you buy the camel from me? He said, what's your problem? Why are you asking me? He goes, look, before I can determine the price of the camel, he says, I've already paid you 300 dirham. He says, don't worry. There's something that has come in my mind. I need the answer from you. He said, what? He said, why did you buy it? He said, Wasla bin Askar said, why did you buy the camel from me? Did you buy it for its meat? Or did you buy it as a means of conveyance? Did you buy it for its meat, or did you buy it as a means of conveyance? He said, I brought it as a means of conveyance. He said, all right, if that is the case, I have to tell you something about this camel. Number one, this is called khiyar aib. What is this called? Khiyar aib. And this is something that is prevalent in the West. Khiyar aib. 16 days money back guarantee, 30 days money back guarantee. Where did this concept come from? It came from Islam. It's called khiyarul aib in the books of fiqh. So now he says, look, I have to tell you something. One of its foot is defective, and one of its front hoof, it's got a hole in it. And when I was making this deal with you, I did not disclose this. So you have to take 100 dirham back from me. So he returns 100 dirham. This customer was over the moon. Alhamdulillah, I was ready to pay 300 and I'm getting 100 back. Alhamdulillah. He said, but why? Why are you returning 100 dirham back? You know what he said? He said, the wealth of this dunya is temporary. Gold and silver, it will all perish. The nature of gold and silver it comes and it goes. No big deal. Today if I'm suffering a loss, inshallah my Rabb will compensate for it later. But I have made an oath with my Habib, with the Prophet of Allah. I have made an oath. We all Muslims throughout the world, we have made an oath with the Prophet of Allah. If we render the kalima on our tongues, we have made an oath with the Prophet of Allah. He said, I have made an oath with the Prophet of Allah. And what is that oath? That I will always want the... And what is the oath? Not always. I have made an oath that every second of my life I will want the well-being of my fellow Muslim brother. every second, not every moment, not every day or every month, every second, every moment of my life, I will want the well-being of my fellow Muslim brother. How can I sell and on top of this, the Prophet of Allah has said, he said, that if you sell a merchandise, a commodity which has a defect and a fault, and you do not disclose it to the buyer, whatever rakam money you receive from that deal, it is haram for you. The reason being is, it is based on deceit. And the first moral of Islamic business is, we have to remain from deceit and fraud. He goes, I have made an oath. And he goes, Iman is such a thing that cannot be shaken or moved like the mountain. This was the type of businessman Wasla bin Aska radiyallahu anhu was. And this was the type of businessman the angels above the heavens they used to see. Today they are naqid, they are unaqa. Businessmen like this have become extinct like dinosaurs. Where do we find businessmen like this? That want the well-being of the customers. They're not worried about themselves, they want the well-being of their customers. Allah Rabbul Izzat give. This was only one point I elaborated on. There are many I mentioned at the start, 8 to 10. Inshallah we will cover them in the coming Jum'ahs. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin.